Like, wow, I'm
I
like a real
know.
podcast host or shit, you know? You ever, you ever just start talking to someone and realize they're your people? Today's going to be a good show. Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not in today's big show. I'm super excited. And 3 minutes before the show, I remembered to update the ticker. Look at that shit. I'm on it today. Woo! So, tonight we are starting and working a lot on the problem with perfect by Philip William Stover. Now, this is a new author to me, this Satantor project, and it's kind of a quick one. So, in the world of things, we're going to be screaming through this thing all night. So if you want to hang out in Discord, we're going to be up late. I don't know how late. It's until I drop. Other than that, we have the Ramblin' Gremlin show coming up on Thursday, which is going to be exciting. And hopefully later on this week, we're going to be getting into Mingo, which is going to be fantastic. AJ Llewellyn. Excuse me, I had a little cum in my throat there. Anyways, I'm excited about the show here today. And the person that we're having on today, I've met, but I've never actually sat down and had a full conversation with. Everybody else knows her, so I don't need any introductions here, but I'm gonna, because that's kind of what I do. We have a bio here. Let me see. And by the way, all authors, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but all authors love it when I read their bio that's on their website that they haven't updated in 5 years. It's fucking awesome. Got to clear my throat for this. Mischief, Magic, and Murder. That's a Maslow right there. If you're looking for comedy, fantasy, or dead bodies in your romances, sometimes all three at once, I'm your gal. I'm also a gasp extroverted writer. Yeah, it seems counterintuitive that as someone who is energized by people, I spend most of my time alone, yet that's the case, and I don't mind. Mostly. If I get writer's block, or start to go a little stir-crazy, I head out to a coffee shop, a restaurant, a friend's place, anywhere to fill up my need for human contact. You know, I could have seen that sentence go in a lot of different directions there. It also helps that I spend a lot of time with the voices in my head. Some of them are really quite opinionated. I love writing gay romance because I'm a sap for a happy ending, and I believe everyone, regardless of orientation, should be able to find books that have them. And if that romance comes with a dash of mischief, magic, or murder, all the better. I believe that life is for living, kindness is contagious, and a good book makes the world a better place. Everyone, I give you Meghan Maslow.
Hey,
Hello,
everyone.
Meghan.
Hi.
Ta-da! Exactly. So, yeah, the last time I saw you, you were like a dreaded out rock star. What the fuck happened, man? You're like normal
Yeah.
now.
Oh, don't say that. That hurts. So after 15 years, I had to get rid of them, and I had a whole. It's only been about a month, and I had it like for 2 weeks. I mourned hardcore because 15 years is a long time. And the worst thing was, I got them. I had to get them cut. I was getting really, really bad headaches, and it was starting to pull out hair. So I was going to start getting alopecia. And so I finally made the decision. I did it. I didn't cry, but I really mourned. I came home, and I have two teens in the house. And the first one looks at me, the younger one, and he gets tears in his eye, and he's like, oh, now you look like a regular mom. I was like, ow, ow, that hurt. And my older one goes, she's even worse, because she was like, yeah, no, actually, you just look like grandma. And by that, I just mean old.
Oh
I
my,
was like,
oh
I
my,
was like,
oh.
I was like, wow, this is really family support there.
So
So I dyed it blue. I don't know if you can really tell. It's the color of my shirt. I don't know if the lighting's not great, but it is the color of my shirt. So I had to at least do that.
You had to spice it up somewhat. So your kid called, you said you looked like your grandma. Oh my God, that's horrible.
Oh yeah.
That kid would be cooking her own meals for a little while in the near future in my house.
That kid, you never ask a question if you don't want to know the answer.
Well, I had years ago. I had long hair for years. I was, so years ago when I got it cut off, I went through stages, and when I did that first chop, where you go. I went to a buzz cut. Went to a buzz. No, my apologies. I went to a short-haired John Bon Jovi first. So all of it came off, and my kid, Jody, just smiled. I could tell she didn't like it. I was going bald. There's nothing I can fucking do. My kid asked me to go back. He was like, "Can you go back?" like he was Like they can put it back on. Like you glue it right
Well,
there. So
that's a politer response than mine. So,
yeah,
in
exactly.
comparison,
It now is
yeah.
it polite to ask what was there an event in particular? Did you turn 40 finally? What the fuck happened? Why did you get a cut?
Well, honestly, it was because it was pulling so hard that it was starting to pull my hair out,
So
and I
that
was
was
going to get
the
alopecia.
physical reason
I
alone.
already
So
Yeah, so I already have like spots that are light, and because I have a ton of hair. Like I've always had a ton of hair. So in comparison, right now I'm like, wow, this feels so weird because it doesn't feel the same, but it's growing back in. So I just have to keep it short, let it grow back in, and
yeah, right
deal with
now
it.
well, and you'd mentioned that. I guess I didn't know, so it still is not registering with me that those are heavy. Those are fucking heavy on your head, and they're just pulling the
Oh, they're
entire
so
time.
heavy. Yeah, they're heavy. I used to have them down to my waist,
Wow.
and yeah, and I had to cut them from there because I was getting such bad neck aches.
Uh,
Um,
uh,
yeah,
I
because when
never
you
thought
wash
about it.
them, they stay wet for a good 12 hours at least,
Right.
and so it's pounds of weight.
I didn't realize that. I guess that could also, if you wanted to like build up your traps back here, you could probably just
Right,
get
exactly. Well, I think it's
that's
more
good
like you're gonna be
exercise.
more like hunched over. Love
Whoa.
it. Ah.
So you were mentioning that you're from Michigan. Are you living? You're not living in Michigan currently. Is that correct?
No, I've lived in DC now for God, I don't know, almost 20 years. Or it's actually DC Metro. I'm on the Maryland side, which is a big deal, if you're on the Maryland or the Virginia side, but I'm
Now,
on the Maryland side.
well, in most people that live around that area, there's a specific career thing. Is it a spouse or something like that, or are you working in? Are you the president? Because we don't really. It could be. I'm not sure.
You don't really
I trust
know.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I trust you. You could be in charge. That's cool with me. You make pretty cool decisions. Um,
I'd make great decisions.
did you choose to move to the DC area? And it was an intentional thing. Did you just fall off a plane?
Oh
What
yeah.
happened?
Yeah. I finished my PhD and I decided I didn't want to go into academia. And so I decided to come to DC. I had gotten into a bunch of the law schools here and I decided not to do that. But there were a lot of consultancies. And so I started being a consultant and I mean, that is like the job at DC. I mean, Mr. Maslow is a contractor consultant as well. And then over time, I just started transitioning more and more toward writing.
That's so cool, though. The day of the so you're not doing that anymore, right? You're not a consultant to the
No, I
government, or we
still
don't have
get
to.
it. No, I can't put my resume up anywhere because I'll get a call so fast. Yeah,
It's got to be an
but
experience. So, do you get to hobnob with any important people still? Do you have to go to those fancy dinners where you wear the dress and you have to? I saw that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis, so I know how this shit goes.
not quite that. But I've had a lot of really, I mean, truly unusual experiences. Yeah, for sure. Where it's been some big political figures, both within the U.S. and overseas. So yeah, I once accidentally. I didn't know this. This is so embarrassing, but I got sat
Hang
next
on, you
to
have me interested. Tell me more. Sorry.
I got I got sat next to the prime minister of Swaziland at the time. I didn't know that he was the prime minister. I wonder why he had all these bodyguards with him on the plane. And we ended up talking, and I ended up like spilling my love life to him.
Were
And the
you?
weird thing was, you know, I had been dating someone who was very well known in Tanzania, and his father was actually really really big. I won't say who it is, but and so he said, "Oh, so and so's that's his son, right?" And I was and I was like, I probably should not have opened my mouth. I had
That
no
is so.
idea who he was.
Now, were you drinking at the time? Was there alcohol involved in this, or was this is just normal
It's on
Megan
a
on the?
plane, of course. Well, I mean, this is normal, Megan, but I mean, it's on a plane, of course. And I was in my 20s, of course.
Oh, that is so fucking good. The hobnobbing thing. I used to get very intimidated by, and I suppose still, like, let's say for instance, maybe you can tell me the celebrity for you. If I ran into Harrison Ford, I'm gonna fucking freak the hell out. All right, he's an idol of mine, and I just could not fucking help it. I would freak the fuck out. I used to get that way with anybody that had any sort of fame. I don't any. It just does not phase me one little fucking bit at this point. But Harrison Ford, who's the one for you? Is there somebody that like pops out in your head that you would just
I
freak
actually
out?
have, I have the worst story about this.
Oh,
Because
goody.
I'm also not this person. Like I don't. So I have a good friend who used to do makeup for the stars. Like, you know, he's done Angelina Jolie, he's done all sorts of people. And I said to him, "Well, how do you not get starstruck?" And he's like, "Oh, stars are just like us, but worse." And I always remember that, right? So I was like, right, stars are just like us, but worse. Okay, I can embrace that mentality. So I've never, you know, well, gone to a conference and like been like, oh, I have to, oh wow, you know, with the authors or other things. And it's always authors for me. It's never movie stars. But I was in Silver Spring with a friend of mine who was in town for a conference, and I took her to my favorite little Indian place. And I'm sitting at the table, right? It's two top, and she's on one side, and I'm on the other. I look over, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like this really hides me, right? I was like, "Bonnie, is that Neil Gaiman?"
Oh, oh, wow.
Right? I was like, "Is that Neil Gaiman?" Like in Silver Spring, in this little tiny Indian, you know, place that nobody knows about. And I was like, and she's like, "Who?" And I was like, "What?
Slap.
What? Yeah." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You have a teenager who like idolizes him. Like, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "I don't know who that is." And so I like get my phone out and I'm like, and I was like, "There's a picture of him," you know. And she looks over and she's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's him." Well, he's with
Wow.
his wife and he's with some friends. And like, I think the worst thing in the world would be to interrupt someone's meal like that. If they're not at if they're at a conference, it's one thing. But like when they're clearly out with their spouse, just trying to enjoy their meal, I was like, okay. Like my heart's like, and I was like, no, no, just play it cool. Like you just have to let it go. You saw him. This is good enough. Well, it turns out that we ended up paying our bills at the same time, and we all stood up at the same time and headed toward the door.
Oh,
So I'm like, okay, wow, I should say something. Should I say something to him? Should I say something to him? And I was like, and I just look at him. I was like, excuse me. I was like, are you Neil Gaiman? And he's like, so nice. He's like, why, yes, I am. And I was like, oh, it's like her son loves you.
wow.
I can't even acknowledge, right? And he goes, really? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh. And I was like, I would you mind taking a picture with her so I could send it to her son? And he's like, oh, sure, sure. So he takes a picture with my friend who doesn't know who he is, but her son is a fan. So I do this, and he finishes, and I was like, thank you so much. And he's like, would you like a picture with me? And I was
Oh, wow.
like my voice is going up to octaves. I was like, wait, I guess I could. Yeah, sure. So I come over, and I'm standing there, and he's like, you know, like 5 or 6 feet away, and he's like, "Did you want to get closer?" And so I go, and he's still like way over here. So I should show you this picture. It's the funniest thing in the world. So he's over here, and he has to lean over like this, and he's in this picture, leaned over, trying to get his arm around me because I'm like,
Oh, my God.
and I never free like I never have those moments, but I think it was the surprise of it all, you
Well,
know. Like if
sure.
I'd been at a conference expecting to see him, I wouldn't have thought twice, but I think it was like seeing him in this place where I would never have expected to see him.
That's
Oh yeah,
absolutely
it was
well. It's like he is Neil Gaiman in his natural habitat. You almost like
right.
you almost just want to observe. And for me, that's kind of I really enjoy people watching. I don't know. Do you do
Oh,
that?
I love
Do
it.
you, oh my goodness, it's the best thing ever. And in that
Yeah.
instance, you almost but the guy. He's got eyes in the back of his fucking head. He knows you're watching. So you got to think about that the whole time. The what other authors have inspired you? What's kind of tied into making Meghan Maslow who she is? That was a very well structured
Uh,
question, by the way. Look at that. That
that
was good.
was look
I
at
like
you
folded my
go.
hands after. I was like, wow, I'm
I
like a
know.
real podcast host or shit.
Well, I started out probably when I wrote my first book, it was really Robert Aspirin. He wrote a comic fantasy series. And when I
Hmm.
started writing in MM, there weren't a lot of comic fantasy writers out there. And, you know, my biggest problem is I've always been influenced by too many things. So I love I don't just love fantasy. I love comic fantasy, which is like a subgenre.
Well,
That,
so are you talking
niche.
the Hit or Myth series specifically? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah,
read it. I read it as a young teen, or maybe a
yeah.
tween even,
I
and it was
devoured
funny,
those.
right? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was so much fun, and I wanted to write something fun. I really wanted to have fun with my characters, but I wanted it to be a little more adult, but still that kind of fun. Um, and then I love mystery because that's where I started out writing, and so I love dead bodies, and then of course I love romance and gay romance. And so here, like my first book, I remember I wrote it and I thought, I have no idea how I'm going to market this thing. How do you market comic fantasy that has a mystery in it that has is gay romance? Like how do you do that thing, so that was because of course when you start writing, I think there are people who start writing, I think, and who know what they want. They have their target market. They know all those things. I didn't know crap. Like I was like, what do I want to read? What don't I see in the market? And that's how I started. And Robert Asprin was a huge influence for me.
I noticed recently that there are no, and if somebody knows differently, if somebody can just find this, please let me know. There are no audiobooks to most of that series. I would kill for that job. Me and Greg should arm wrestle for it at some point because oh my god, I would kill for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. There's only I think the first maybe two or
yeah,
three,
yeah, and they
because I
dropped
brought
off.
them because my older teen really likes them too.
Hmm. But you can share that. See, I gave I forget. It was probably the first or second one. We used to have a bunch of the paperbacks on the shelf years ago. So I gave one to my kid at the time. Well, he's still my kid, I guess. But he was like 12 or 13.
Your kid at the time, like you just
Yeah,
gave him away.
I've,
He hit
I've
teenage
claimed.
years and he was out.
Well, you understand, yes. he was he was in those years at the time. I was trying to. He was actually a little younger than that. I was trying to encourage him to read, and this is one of the books that I gave him. And he had absolutely no fucking interest because, of course, Dad gave it to him. He got turned on by Harry Potter and stuff instead, which is all good. These things combined with like Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, and a few of those others that I found on the shelves.
Oh yeah.
Just man, you remember the old checkout cards you used to have at the library, right? You put a
Oh
little card
yeah.
in.
Oh
Yeah, mine
yeah.
was like the
Yeah,
only
I was a huge
name on
David
those.
Eddings fan.
Oh yeah, fucking a, dude. Me and you
I
come from the
love
same
it. And none
background.
of
Look at that.
those are in audios, by the way.
I didn't know
They're
that
not even
either.
they're not even I don't even think most of them aren't even on ebook.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
see,
I just
see, Megan, me and you, we should start a fucking company. We should buy up some rights, and we should do this shit right. You can, put a little editorial in the
exactly.
beginning. Put your you write that bit, and then it's yours. It's fucking brilliant. We can do this. We got to wait. I think somebody's got to die, and then we got to wait for nobody to re-up the rights. I think it's what we got to do. So who do we got to kill?
That's a good question because
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not sure.
it's a,
I'll have to
it's always
research
a,
that.
it's always exciting to me to talk to someone that's really into that genre though, especially because I don't know, what are you, 32? We're about the same age, I think. So somewhere in
In
there,
our
I think
30s, yeah, yeah, it's great to
exactly.
be in our 30s. I love
Yeah.
it.
So you took all that and you decided to write your first book. Tell me about your first book, your first experience. Did you share it with anyone? Was it a hit? Did you burn it? What happened?
Yeah, no, actually it was. So it did well. The funny thing was when I first did it, this was when Dream Spinner was still around,
Hmm.
and I had never published indie before. And so I had already published a novella and a short with Dream Spinner. And I had gone to their conference and I had planned to pitch this book to them, right? Because that's what you did in the day. You'd pitch it to them and they'd be like, oh, okay, great. Um, and but at the time the head of Dream Spinner, Elizabeth, would give this talk every year about like what was selling and what wasn't. And one of the things she said is like, well, fantasy romance, no market for it. And continuing characters, which I knew I was going to have continuing characters in the series. Like, no, absolutely not. And this is right before the pitch meeting I was supposed to have, which I then canceled because I was like, what's the point, right? And I thought, well, you wanted to try something new, so I'm going to indie publish it. And thank God I did with all the stuff that went down. But But so then I went ahead and I did it, and I, put it through all the editing. And I mean, I have a team that's just incredible, that it's enviable, honestly. And so I got it all ready and polished it up, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna let it out in the world, and I did. And I thought, okay, it's out. I'll put up a short pre-order. It was coming out in like a week or something, and I had given it to all these different bloggers, and one came on, and my very first review on Goodreads was like, "Is this supposed to be funny?" I hated this book. Like basically it was like it was a review that was like, this author should never write anything ever again, even her name. Like,
Crush.
it was
Crush.
it was it was the most crushing review I've ever had of any of my books ever. And it's my very first one for my very first novel. And
Got
I
it out of
thought,
the
well,
way,
that's it.
baby.
Well, but I thought, that's it. I'm done. Like 1 star, like I'm done. And and then another blog site ended up having 5 reviewers. One of them read it, loved it, got the others on board, and they did what they called a gangbang for it. And and so they saw this review, and thank God for them, because they rushed on and they all put their reviews. And like one
Nice.
of them's like, it's my favorite book I've read this summer. And because I'm not, I have a pretty thick skin for a writer. Like I do. I just do. But your first book, your first novel, like real substantial piece of work, and the 1 star was awful. It was literally like, she should just never write again. Like, this
It's
is so
soul crushing.
terrible.
It's soul crushing.
Yeah,
I
I thought this was supposed to be funny.
what have you? Do you just out of curiosity, moving forward, because you've been at this a while now? Do you still read your reviews on a regular basis? Do you get on Goodreads? Do you get on anything like that?
I only read the first couple just to see how it's hitting
Hmm.
initially, and to know that it's gone up, because to make sure that people are seeing it. But
Yeah.
after that, I tend not to. I do have a team that if I am concerned about a book, I'll say, can you go on and start pulling out stuff? My PA, of course, will pull out the good stuff for me to use for things. But I have asked. But I also have, so unlike most people, I have 6 editors.
Wait.
Um,
Okay. Wait. I gotta hear
yeah,
this whole. Let's stop there.
it's insane.
Remember your long point. You got to tell me about this. 6 editors. What's the process? You scribble on your refrigerator, and the first one writes a book. How's this work?
So, um, when I wrote mystery, I wrote short stories mostly because my kids were really little. And I had joined a writing group where everyone is a professional editor or publisher. One of them is a publisher. He's published, he's done some of the Star Trek books. Like, he's amazing. And then there's a whole series of people who are editors. And so all of my stuff, they read all of my stuff, everything I write, whether it's in mystery, whether it's in whatever I write, they do. And um, they all have different strengths. So like one is does the developmental, another one is a line editor, and it goes all the way through the copy. And they have a copy editor, like, and they just do it. And I can submit chapters as I'm writing, and they'll give me feedback then, and then they'll redo it at the end for me, all of them. So it's pretty impressive. Like I have a team
That's a
that
beautiful thing. Really, I just let's stop and appreciate what you just said. A team of people is actually helping you develop this. That doesn't. How would we put this in the best way? For me to, it's not their baby. They can kill
right,
the babies. They can cut the pages, that sort of thing. And
and
they're
they do.
walking you. Yeah. And
They
they're
do.
walking you not only through the line edits, which is hugely, but I would think also the developmental editing process of saying this doesn't work, this does, you can cut this scene. What
Right.
do you think about doing this with the character? My goodness gracious, that's awesome. I'm assuming that this,
Yeah.
what did you have to take a small loan out to get this done? I mean, is it super
They do
expensive?
it. No, they do it for free.
Oh my God.
That's
Wait,
what I'm saying. It's insane. Like
yeah.
my team, like in comparison, because anytime someone asks me about, well, what do you, for editors, what do you do for this? What do you do? I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I am in a completely different situation. I have been with this group since 2004.
Wow.
And so anytime they write novels, I do their novels too. and I'm not an editor, like a line editor, copy editor, any of that, but I'm a really good structural editor.
Hmm.
I'm kind of like an alpha reader for them, basically. And I can do a really good developmental edit. I've
Well,
learned over the years.
what's also so cool about this, I mean, this is a think tank, is what this is, which is a
It
fantastic
is.
concept. It's think and grow rich kind of shit. But what's cool about it is these writers are not all in your genre, if any of them are in your chosen genre. So they're coming at this from not only a strictly mathematical equation of this line isn't right, line editor style, but also from a different storytelling perspective, which I think would put a nice flavor on what you're doing.
Yeah, it's certainly helpful. They're all very strong in mystery. They're all very strong in suspense. One of them is also really strong in fantasy and sci-fi. Another one is strong in romance and as well. So it's a great team. It's really diverse, and they are. We have this thing where we are not a emotional support group where it's like, no, you're doing so great, Megan, this is so, like, if they don't like something, they just tell me, like, they'll tell me this doesn't work or this sucks. Like, they've actually said this to me, this sucks,
Yeah,
what happened in this chapter, like,
they're
this
not
sucks.
yes men. You can't surround yourself by yes men all the time. It's nice to have them
No.
occasionally, and certainly a cheering squad is freaking awesome. But at the end of the day, it doesn't pay the
Well,
bills.
ultimately
So
they are my cheering squad by telling me the truth. You know what I
sure,
mean? By
an
not like
actual
just
friend, a
blowing smoke
true
up my
friend.
ass.
Yeah, yeah,
And so they've been great, and I don't think I would be there. I mean, I don't think I'd be where I'm at with writing if it wasn't for them, because I developed my voice with them. When I started writing, when you start out, you don't have much of a voice usually. Some people do, but most of us don't. It's kind of a generic. It doesn't stand out over, you could read this person and this person and not really know the difference. And voice isn't something you can teach. All you can tell people is just keep writing. You just
now
have to keep writing and figure out what your voice actually is.
I guess I have a two-part question, and I'm not answer it how you will. The first is, how would you define an author's voice? Not specifically one author in particular, but how would you define that definition, an author's voice? And the follow-up question is, how would you define yours?
Well, I think the way you define an author's voice is it's when you read a book and you go, oh, that's an AJ Sherwood book without having to look at it, or that's a Lucy Lennox book and not have to look at it to see the name. You just know by you can read a few pages, you can skim through and go, oh, I know who this is. I
Hmm.
recognize this person. There's an awful lot of people you can read their stuff, and it's not that they're bad writers. It's not that you don't, it's not that you're not enjoying the story, but you wouldn't, if you covered up the name, it could be one of all these other writers and they just either don't have a distinct voice yet, or their voice is just so similar to so many others. So often when I'm talking about voice, I'm really talking about something that when someone reads you, they go, oh, like in my case, oh, that's a Maslow. um,
Do you think that's a large decision issue? So, for instance, in the scheme of things, when you're plotting out a book, or when I guess you're writing a book, when the plot moves forward in a certain way, a decision is made. We're going to use this type of confrontation, that sort of thing. Sex at 33%, sex at 60%. All these things. 33 is a bit early, but I've done a lot of those. But anyways, you know what I mean. These decisions that have to be made through the course of writing a book. Are you talking about the big decisions? Or are you talking about in a single page you can pick out, well, this person uses this adjective a lot. That sort of deal, something very specific.
it's
It's probably a tough
it's
question, isn't it? I'm sorry, I didn't
it
mean to
is a
fuck
tough
you up.
question. It's usually within a few pages, I would say, a chapter at most,
Gotcha.
because it comes through in how the characters are portrayed. If it's humor, for example, TJ Klune's humor is different than Alice Winter's humor, which is a little different than mine, which is a little different than AJ Sherwood's. And so, if you're reading any of us at all, if you've read a few things of us, you go, oh wait, I can guess who this one is.
I
You
got
could
it.
put up a chapter from each of us and probably pick us apart.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And I'm sorry. When I was thinking about it, I was asking the question because I was genuinely curious. Like, how do you? And I mean, I dissect authors. That's what I do for a living. I dissect the words that you just wrote, and I try and portray them in a manner that's going to evoke an emotion or response of some sort from the crowd. Let's hope. And if you do your job and I do mine, it comes out really cool on the other side. The sometimes I perceive exactly what you're saying. Wow, I've done 3 books in the last 10 days, and by the way, this doesn't happen to me a lot at this point in my career. I'm very grateful for that. But I've done 3 books in a row, and I couldn't tell the difference. And this is not only just a trope or a plot; it is also definitely just the writing. I think not any large, not any risky decisions are being made. The author's being very safe most of the time. I observe that in a lot of new authors. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think that sometimes you're just not, you don't know all the time what your voice is. You're not sure what it is. And I think sometimes people can overstudy the market and be like, oh, well, this kind of romance is selling right now, so I'm going to write this kind of romance. And I know I need, like you were saying, like the sex scene has to be at 33%. And I'm a pantser, so
Hmm.
you never know when my sex scene can be. It could be at 1%, it can be at 75%. I mean, you just don't know. And I don't know, but I know when it works.
Hmm.
And it's for me that to try to like be like, okay, I'm going to do it this way, and this person needs to be like this, so I'm going to write them I can't do that. Like, my characters are literally in my head talking to me. I can tell you at any one time what Twig Starfig like, he runs. There's a commentary in my head all the time when I'm talking to people of how he would think about stuff. So when, like, if I'm doing something and someone says something really fucking stupid, I know how Twig is reacting in my head. I hear him almost as like a separate being from me. It's not a conscious thing. And I've talked to writers who are like, no, they're my characters. I tell them what to do. I tell them to go there, do this. And I was like, how do you not get bored? Like, it's just, it's just different. It's not bad.
Hmm.
But like, for me, I want to be as surprised as the reader, and so I need that. And sometimes when I start writing, I don't have the voice right. They're trying to tell me who they are still, and suddenly it just clicks, and all of a sudden it just goes, oh, and I know exactly what they'll do. I know exactly all the fuckery that's going to happen in this book.
Did it scare you
So
going a bit against the grain here? I know you say you're a pantser, but also of I don't know when the first sex scene is going to be. I'm assuming that you're also doing the same thing with tropes. You're a bit outside the box. I've seen you from afar for quite a while.
yeah.
Was that a little bit scary coming into an industry like this, where, I mean,
So I,
that,
I really didn't understand tropes for a long time. I mean, I really didn't. Because again, I came more out of mystery and fantasy.
mm,
Fantasy is I loved reading romance, but I had read het romance for years and years, the old 80s, old school, like Johanna Lindsay, that kind of stuff. And then I had started reading MM, and I didn't have a huge frame of reference. All I knew is that I had this book in me and I wanted to write it. And it wasn't a marketing decision at all. Like, because from a marketing perspective, if a new writer came up to me and said, hey, this is going to be my first book and it's going to have all these things, do you think this is a great idea? I'd be like, well, I mean, it could be, because sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it just hits and it works. And other times it just doesn't, right? It's that people don't know how to classify it, they're not interested in it, your covers are wrong, whatever, your blurb is wrong. So I didn't know any of that, and especially going indie, because I didn't have anyone I could lean on quite at that time to really walk me through, because all of the authors I'd known had been traditionally published at that time. And so they could help me some, but they didn't have any experience either. So it was, and now it's such a huge industry. I mean, you can ask anybody practically, and everyone's indie. Indie. None of these publishers hardly have survived, and so everyone's indie practically.
there's a yeah, and there are certainly well, there isn't a DSP right now. I don't think that anyone's really, and maybe I'm wrong if I am, if there is, but DSP was the last real, and DSP is still here. They're still putting out books, but it's not like it used to be, and we all know it.
And
I,
Riptide, I think, is still around as well.
I actually just saw a
The
book
same thing.
published by Riptide recently, and it surprised me. I was like, huh, I didn't know that, but apparently so. So I
Yeah.
learn something new every day. It's interesting to me that you did this. You wrote without really thinking about a trope because you didn't know it was wrong.
I
So
didn't know
that
it was wrong.
also it
I'm
brings to
so
mind
clueless.
when you first got into this. Were you reading a lot of romance? Had you observed these trends, or were you just kind of I know you said you were a fan of
I was,
romance,
but
but
again,
you hadn't really read this, I guess.
well, there wasn't really a lot of comic
Well,
fantasy.
well,
And a
true.
lot.
I get it. So not specifically in,
So
but gay romance in particular.
so
Did you
Oh,
have
I
a
read
trope that?
tons of gay romance.
Okay,
Oh
so
yeah. I mean, I read anything that was shifter I was reading. But when I came
gotcha.
in, it was like Mary Calme was there, C. Cardano was there, Shannon West, um, and it was people who'd been around for a while, who are still around,
Oh yeah.
and doing well, right? But it was different then, and what you could access. And I've never been much of a contemporary reader
Hmm.
of romance. I never did an MF, and so I really didn't start that way in MM. I read the occasional, and I enjoy them when I read them. I have a secret weird thing about hockey romance, even though I don't like sports. I don't know, but I love Teddy Hamilton and Jacob Morgan together. So
So I got to tell you, little Lissa Gramling, right? So little Lissa Gramling hates hockey romances, and we've been harassing her about it for a while. We can't get her to like a hockey romance, and we've got her to like other things. She likes Impreg now, and but she will not. She just has it. It's hilarious to me. Anyways, I had to tell you that because it's fucking funny, and I think maybe
I love
have
Melissa.
you done hockey romances? I don't know your catalog, unfortunately.
No, I stay. I mean, I'm really mischief, magic, and murder. I always have to have magic in my worlds. I don't, I don't
Could you
veer
could you
toward contemporary.
could you maybe do a short story and just a hockey romance just so we can piss her off again? Because I enjoy throwing these things her way, and she loves you, so this would be perfect.
I've actually thought about doing a paranormal hockey one. I thought that would be really fun,
It's a great idea. By the way, Danielle
right?
Maria, late to the crowd, but we love you, Danielle. She says Megan's voice is very distinctive. If you're laughing your ass off, falling in love with the characters, but have
Aw,
a growing sense of foreboding, you're reading a Maslow. Look at that. People
thank
love you, dude.
you.
People love you. Hey, I'm sorry I missed our. You invited me to lunch last GRL, and I wasn't able to attend, and I'm
And
really
you
sorry
just you
about
just
that.
bailed. You
I
bailed.
know.
Like you just like cut out. Like
I
you're
was like,
like,
fuck
I
you.
got other people. There's other people who are more important.
Exactly.
Spouses, whatever.
Yeah, fuck 20 years, So we, we,
Exactly.
we,
God.
do you get to that? I mean, I'm probably an extrovert. I mean, you guys know me. I do what I do, but at a point at a convention, I just shut down. I'm just like, I got to get away for a few hours, guys. Sorry, I'm done. No more peopling today. Thank you very much. Do you hit that wall there?
No, no. I have the opposite. See, so this is how I describe it. Like introverts, they always say it's like a battery being run down, right? So they only have a certain amount of battery life, and then they're run down and they have to retreat. And some introverts have very little. For me, being an extrovert, it's like every interaction is a cup of coffee. It's a little shot of espresso.
Holy
And oh,
shit.
that espresso tastes so good. Oh, it's so good. And then I get more, and then I see the next person and I have another little shot of espresso. Well, pretty soon I've got like 37 shots of espresso in me. And I actually get shaky. Like my hands start to shake. And I'm so like, it reminds me of those like the little chihuahuas that shake, because I have so much at this point. I have so many espressos in me. So I have learned now to make myself disengage, or that's what Lauren often does for me. She's always, one of my roommates, and she's my, as I call her, the author wrangler. She lets me be the social one, and she takes care of all the back end for me so that I can just chat with people while she sets up my table and herds me places and tells me you need to go now. But she also will sometimes say to me, you're getting to that point. And so what I've learned to do now is to go back to my room, throw on running clothes, and I run 3 or 4 miles to run off some of the energy, to drain
It
it.
makes absolute perfect sense to me. Absolute per. I A couple of years ago, I kept on hitting their pool, and I was like swimming laps in the fucking pool. I tried that. But yeah,
Because you got to burn yourself down,
well, and it
right?
makes perfect sense. Actually, it's funny enough, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, but you said you start to shake after a little while, and that's exactly where I get, and that's when I just have to, like, I'm done. Sorry, I'm out. No, I've done enough peopling. I will buzz. I will go from person to person. Ding, 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 ding. It's like watching Remember those games we had in the 80s? Where you
Oh
get the
yeah.
pizza parlor and I
Oh,
forget
it's
the
so like that.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and I can never say, like, Lauren and Rowan know they cannot go back to the room and leave me down in the lobby saying I'll be up in just a minute, because 2 hours later I have not quite made it to the elevator yet. I have stopped all along the way, and I mean, it's a thing. And so, like, I really honestly need an author handler, like, Lauren is my author wrangler. One year for a costume she went as my author wrangler, because that's
Uh,
because I can't control it. I just like,
I,
oh, people, like,
dude,
I
I
love this person, I love this person. Oh, I haven't seen this person, I haven't met this person, I want to meet this person.
exactly. And then pretty soon it's two
Yeah,
hours later. Trace helped me one
2 hours
year.
later.
Jody's wonderful with fucking. But yeah, I see. I shouldn't go to these things alone like that. I think you got a damn good point there. Hey, you have been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much. This has been excellent.
Oh,
I
thank you,
don't know
it's been
if
fun.
you I didn't even get a chance to like ask you what you're working on and stuff. So you're gonna have to come back at some point. So please do that if you would.
Yeah,
Um,
working away.
I'm sure.
Always
Thank you
happy to
so
come
much.
on.
Everybody, I'll be in Discord at some point here. I'm not sure if Jody's got dinner ready or not. I might need dinner first. We shall see. But I'll be working a bunch tonight. And this is the easy part, Megan. All I got to do is wave bye to the camera. See y'all later. Have fun. Love you.
Bye, everyone.